Welcome to We're Not Wizards. We are the best, but not wizards. Enjoy the show!
Welcome to We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for November as he lets the dog out the door. It's the early part of November. You could say it's getting dark, or you could say it's getting cozy. It's kind of one of the two. One of the things that you like to do, well, I like to do, is occasionally get somebody back on that I haven't spoken to ages, and there seems to have been a kind of occurring thing that is happening where I get kind of people coming on. The last time I spoke to this person, they were at the beginning of what you could say was their journey. And their journey has taken them through flora and fauna, from, I don't know, knotted dice to the world of butterflies, to getting themselves into a little bit of a tussy-mussy, to dealing with experiments with foxes and foxing, and then on their way through their, as my friend calls it, and we'll get around to this, they call it the burb girth. Right through to I think you could probably say they're a pretty fun guy. I've got Elizabeth Hargrave with me, who's and regrets I have a few. One of them is agreeing to come back on this nonsense show. How are you? Are you well, first of all?
I'm quite well. We just had Halloween last night, so I'm full of chocolate.
So I've actually caught you on like a kind of a sugar come down.
Yeah, so we may be a little punchy today.
So at any point you might just like go. I was like, oh no, that's them off. They've gone. Quick, get the blanket and put it round them so you can have a little sleep. Okay, so I guess the question is, did you then go out kind of Halloweening then, trick or treating? And is that why you've got all the chocolate? Or did you do what I do, which is go to the local supermarket, buy lots and lots of sweets, and then sit in the dark with the lights off and a couple of bear traps in the front garden?
Bear traps?
Well, you need two. The first one is like a warning shot, and it stops the other kids from coming into near the house. And then at the end of the night you can say, oh, that's a real shame I didn't get any trick-or-treaters again, but I do have all of this candy that I now have to eat.
I see.
Is that...
Yeah, so my Halloween tradition is I go next door to my best friend's house, and we have a fire in the front yard, and they have decorated with tombstones and skeletons. And last night our innovation was that the skeleton was handing out the candy. So the skeleton had a hand out, and there was candy in the hand of the skeleton and also in the mouth. And, the teenagers thought we were super dorky, but the little kids were kind of terrified to get their candy.
But then again, childhood is all about mixing in kind of joy with trauma.
Right, and facing your fears and being brave.
It's all about.
It was good for them. I'm sure.
As Calvin's dad would say, it's all about building character. Being terrified about some kind of like evil man, kind of giving you candy that's actually a skeleton would be kind of like building character. So what we're saying is, we've got to keep talking, because otherwise at any minute you might just and just shut down, and that'll be it.
Oh no, I still have chocolate with me.
Oh, okay.
Going.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. I discovered that in the interim since we spoke last in February of 2019, that I have discovered on top of the celiacs that I also have some kind of lactose allergy, so I can't even touch chocolate. So thanks for reminding me the fact that I can't share the chocolate joy and rubbing it in by...
Even like, you could probably get really dark chocolate that doesn't have milk in it, right?
Yeah, but dark chocolate's awful. Do you know who drinks dark
Oh,
chocolate?
I love it.
No, it's the same people that have a glass of like really, really red wine. You know, the type of red wine that you kind of look at it and you can't see through it. And they drink their red wine and they would have some dark chocolate and then they would have a slice of Stilton cheese. Living by
I'm that
itself,
person.
by itself. And
You know what else I tried last night for the first time? Do you guys have a candy called Warheads? Have you seen
I've
this?
heard of it. Is it the one that's is it like you really super sour or super?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so sour that my spouse like put one in his mouth and immediately spit it out into the campfire.
I would have said it'd been funny if it spat it out at one of the kids.
Because the kids were really excited about them. That they were in there. They were like, oh, Warheads, I'm totally taking one of those. So I try one and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
So is that why we're in kind of mushroom territory? I mean, are you the type of person that's going about going like, kind of like, well, this is slightly poisonous and it tastes... Are you kind of building yourself up like,
No.
you know, are you like kind
I'm
of...
not interested in the poisonous.
the kind of the Dread Pirate Roberts in The Princess Bride,
Right.
saying that I've slowly kind of built myself up
Built
so
up
I
my
can drink, so I can
resistance.
actually have iocane powder. So you're kind of going up
No.
through kind of like red wine, Stilton, chocolate, Warheads, poisons.
Amanitas, sure, yeah.
You could be sneaking under people's houses and just like getting the rat traps and getting myself. That's terrible. Imagine saying that. You're like successful and could probably have me killed. if you put a call into your.
I don't
phone.
feel like I don't think I've reached to that level yet. No.
How no? I mean, it must be because I had questions lined up, right? And I'm just
Okay.
gonna get my book of questions. I'm gonna show you all the questions that I had. There you go. It's all
It's an impressive list.
It's an impressive list. We've already sent you questions because if you'd got this issue of Tabletop Gaming Magazine, you would have seen, you know, people out there would see the questions that I have the ability to write. When I do the podcast, it's just a stream of consciousness that comes off the top of my head. But one of the things I wanted to touch on was that, like 4 years ago, things have dramatically, I would say they've dramatically changed for yourself. You are a name.
Yes.
You know, there are
Yes.
names and
In a-
there are names.
In like but in like this tiny slice of the world. Not so tiny, growing slice of the world that is hobby board games.
Yeah, no, but it's still like...
But like I can still go to the grocery store, no problem, right? Which is it's a nice kind of fame.
It's kind yeah, but what happens if you run into somebody? Do you ever, I mean, I obviously at conventions, but have you not had your kind of like, it's you, isn't it, kind of moment where somebody's going to come up and says, are you?
The closest I've come is I'm in like a neighborhood group on Facebook where people give stuff away. It's like a buy nothing group. And I participate like a normal person in it, and every once in a while people are like, "Oh my God. I would like this from you, and also can I bring by my copy of Wingspan and will you sign it when I pick up this random piece of junk that you're giving me?"
It's like, well, here's your 3 spoons that you asked for.
Exactly.
Okay, just give me that. I'll kind of.
Yeah. And I have a Sharpie, sure. Yeah.
What did they ask you to sign then? Did you just have to say best wishes, or they say, you know, may your wings always be spanned, or I mean,
I don't usually say anything. I probably should be more creative about what I say.
Do you draw a bird
when I
on
sign
it?
Things.
I mean, I know there's a bird in the box.
I do the little V-shaped bird, you know, like
The ones that,
sometimes
that people like paint these glorious like beach scenes with pastel, and then you see them
When they're signing things?
they get the
No.
charcoal
Yeah,
paint
yeah.
out, and they go, whoa, whoa, and they go,
Yeah.
and there's a seagull, and it's like it's not a seagull,
Yeah.
but I'll let you off
Right.
because
So sometimes when I sign, I'll do one of those, but that's about it. I mean, my name is very long. It already takes up a lot of space.
yeah, but could you not like? I mean, we could, like, in the R, you could potentially make a kind of a little bird shape in the R, and then they've got two R's. Yeah. And then you've
I
got
like that I came on your podcast and we're workshopping.
And then you've got well, we're just,
my autographs here.
Or you could just put a big, I don't know. This is something we should work on.
Yeah.
Because I got a feeling that, Wingspan is obviously the gift that kind of keeps on giving. But obviously Wingspan's here, and Wingspan's obviously sitting in the background. And are you going to end up like Alec Guinness with Obi-Wan Kenobi? Are you ever worried they're going to have this body of work out there and everybody's going to remember you for like the one game? Or do you put yourself in, do you ever kind of disassociate yourself from Wingspan just to say like, I can't kind of ride the shirt tails of this. I'm going to jump into this and do this kind of differently, or do this or do that. Do you ever feel?
I mean, both. I don't mind. Like, I will never mind being associated with Wingspan. I'm not gonna be like, stop talking about that. But yeah, I mean, I've tried with the other games that I've done to make them different. I'm not doing like variations on the tableau building engine builder ad infinitum, right? Like, they're all quite different from each other. So, I don't know. I guess I want it both ways. I'm happy to be known for Wingspan, but I'm trying to do other stuff too. We'll see if any of them ever hit. But also, like, Wingspan is so off the charts successful that I don't feel like I need to chase that. Like, I'm just comfortable with the idea that none of my games will ever like find that lightning in a bottle again. If they do, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But does it make it more? Does it take the pressure off then? If you've got that, I think it does a little bit. Kind of that it's just that it's like so above and beyond what normal board game designer experience is, that it's just like its own thing. Yeah. Yeah. It must be. You must still meet people that are trying Wingspan for the first time, because let's face it, we did say like it's like a little. We can talk board games, and it's like, well, everybody that plays board games thinks everybody plays board games, but board games themselves are like a small minutia in the kind of the whole kind of hobby space. So I'm guessing you must still get people going, oh, I just played this for the first time. Have you heard about it? It's called Wingspan. Are there expansions? Right. Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah. Well, now we're almost 5 years out from when it first came out, right? Yeah. So there are people that just like have discovered board games in those 5 years. And, yeah. And you're like potentially one of the first or second games that people play. Isn't that weird? Must be weird. That was not really my intention. I think Wingspan's a little difficult for your first board game, but I think the theme for some people gets them to stretch and do it. Yeah. Because they're motivated by the subject matter. I also wonder if it's like the presentation as well, and like the little things like the eggs and the little food tokens and the little plastic trays that you put everything in, and let's face it, the bird feeder and the card art. It all kind of rolls into one. It's almost like it's always because when you put it on the table, it's got a table presence, and that table presence it doesn't look like a complicated table presence, if you know what I mean. Yeah. You've got a very, very kind of it's open... kind of cozy and non-threatening. Yeah. And then maybe that makes you feel okay about the fact that you're working really hard to figure it out. Yeah, but in fairness, there's not like, if you lay out kind of like the boards for Wingspan, you're not got like little, there's not tons and tons of little kind of tokens and icons kind of everywhere. There's a couple. Yeah. But it's not until you're into your like second or third round and you've got kind of like birds here, there, and everywhere, that it starts to fill up with icons. I mean, if you lay out like a typical kind of light, medium weight, kind of almost like Euro game, then there's always going to be little boxes with little icons and things like that. And I think Wingspan does a good job of kind of almost disguising itself, kind of like away from that. In terms of then, what about like the other games that you've done so far? There's like, obviously there's Mariposas, which
and Tussie Mussy, which were short, they were pretty quickly on the heels of kind of like Wingspan.
Yeah.
And then after that, you kind of went into the kind of the fox experiment, if I'm right.
Yes.
Now that's in the process. Am I correct in saying that's starting to get in the process of kind of like fulfillment?
It should be. They had some copies at Essen,
Mm-hmm.
so some people are playing it. I haven't gotten my copy yet, but it should happen any day now. The fulfillment from the Kickstarter. And the retail release date is November 22nd.
Are you? I mean,
So
are you
soon.
not like getting on the phone to them and saying, "Don't you know, kind of who I?"
I was just mentioning this to another publisher. It's actually really common that the designer copies are just like on the list of Kickstarter backers. We don't get them any sooner than anyone else, which is weird to me. I was just mentioning this to another publisher of like, there should be a little tier for the people that get the first copies. Just the other day, I live really close to Matthew O'Malley, who just had a game come out called First in Flight, and I had my copy like 2 weeks before he did.
Is that
I was trying to get him to take my copy and give me his when it came. But
is that the one where you play like an inventor who's basically racing around a track, and you've got to like repair your engine? It's like a deck builder basically, and it's like a push your luck kind of deck builder. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I was playing that on Friday.
Yeah.
I played that game.
Yeah.
I played that game on Friday because one of the guys at the game group was kind of like, I've got this new. I had brought Expeditions. And Expeditions is like, oh, no, it'll take too long. And it's like, no, it's really easy to play. And they're like, no. And it was like, okay, well, what do you want to play then? It's like, well, I've got First in Flight. And I was like, oh, okay. So we looked at that. So we played a 4-player game. And at the beginning, it's kind of like, you play like 4 cards, and you go like, okay, I'm going to play this one. It gives me a 1. Then this one's giving me a 2. And then this one is a fault. And then, this one's another fault. Okay, I'm going to descend. And then you draw another 2 cards to decide if you descend. But by the end of the game, you're literally laying down kind of like 20 cards all in one, because you've added you've got the ability to basically add on the ability to protect yourself from there being wing faults, and you've also got the ability to kind of circumvent some of the faults that occur, so you can end up just going like do. So I think we all ended up at the beginning, we're like, there's no way we're going to get to 15 and become famous, because if once you have a flight path of 15, you become famous, you flip your card and you kind of get extra skills. But by the end of it, there was like the last player, Andy, he played the last round. He played his last turn, and he managed to get up to like 45.
Wow.
So I don't know if you had it.
It's so satisfying. Yeah, I play tested a bunch. I haven't played the final production copy yet. But
my only concern with it is I thought it took a little bit longer to kind of get going, but then all of a sudden, everybody's kind of going in once, so it was quite so it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that you can, so that must be, getting your copy, you got to wait with everybody. Well, the joke is that everybody at Essen gets their copy first, and then the Kickstarter people, because I've seen the number of Kickstarters I've seen that where it's like, oh yeah, we've kind of shipped our stuff to Essen, because if we don't ship our stuff to Essen, then there's not going to be a company to kind of do it. Do you still go? So I'm guessing that you've still got like the prototype of the Fox experiment.
I do.
So,
yes. And I have a copy that they took to Gen Con before the Kickstarter. So it's pretty nice. It's not like my crappy prototype, So yeah. If I want to show it off to people, I have a copy that I can show off that's pretty close to final.
But so do you then have like drawers now? Do you like have an entire kind of prototyping kind of drawer? You know how
many drawers. How many drawers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18. Like 24 drawers in my office.
But you go like, could you just like reach in and go, okay, you want meeples? I've got dice. Look,
Yes.
I've got dice here. Look, there you go. There's dice. You
Yes.
want dice?
I have like. So here, I'll pull
Okay,
it
let's
out.
here we
I
go.
have
We're playing
the red
the
supplies in this little drawer. So
Can
here
Elizabeth
we've got
get-
the
wow.
red meeples and the red pawns and the red discs and cubes and poker chips.
It's kind of like
And then
the
I have-
board game version of the A-Team from the 80s. Where Hannibal comes in and says, "Oh, quick. I can't do a George Pepper. I should do a George Peppard impression, but I won't. But he'd come in and say, look, we've got 5 minutes until the bad guys turn up and we've got to make ourselves a worker placement game." And you'd just get Howling Mad Murdoch on the case. You're not allowed to call you
That's
wouldn't be allowed to
right.
call him that now, would you? No, that would not be good. So you've got surrounded by drawers, surrounded by components. So you've got a nicer version of the Fox Experiment then, and is the version that you've got, is that nicer than the actual final version you're going to get?
No,
No.
it's not as nice. Yeah,
Do you automatically get?
there's
do you get
still
a
like
deluxe version?
stickers on things and things.
Do you automatically get like the deluxe Kickstarter version?
Yeah,
Do you-
yeah, they are nice enough to do that, and a case of them.
Oh,
So
right,
that's nice.
okay.
Yeah. That's sort of a standard
Mm-hmm.
contract thing. You get a case of your game,
Oh, that's all right then.
which is usually like 6 copies.
Yeah. So what do you do? What do you do with that? Do you hang on to a couple? You know?
Yeah, I give, a copy to my parents.
Oh wow.
And my brother, who actually plays it. And then, I keep a bunch as demo copies because I get invited to do a lot of different events. And then maybe at some point I'll start to retire the demo copies and give them away or whatever. But at first, it's definitely useful to have more than one copy
Do you go around to your parents and say, "Look, here's another game
that you will never play."
How did they react to kind of like? Were they kind of when you? Because I guess there must be. Because I know what my mum and dad would have done. They would have went, "All right, okay, going into this, are you? Okay, on you go." But
I mean, it was just a side gig, so
Yeah.
they were like, "Okay, we don't really understand,
Yeah.
but fine, whatever. If that's how you want to spend your time."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, by the time I quit my job,
Yeah.
it was like such a big deal that they kind of got it. They've been fine. Happy that I'm doing what makes me happy,
Yeah.
but they don't understand it well enough to be like super supportive. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
But it must be like kind of like when you've got like the accolades and stuff like that, where you've got the board game geek gold medals, and
yeah.
that must be kind of cool to kind of like, look, here's my medals.
Right. I don't know that they really have context for it. Like, my dad has a wall of medals. He ran a marathon in all 50 states in the United
All right,
States.
okay.
Like, he has a lot of medals, too.
So if you have a medal office like that, so
So,
did you go to North
yeah.
Dakota? Because see that medal there? That's me running North Dakota.
Yeah.
Oh, I better not say that. Connie Vogelman, she'll come after me. Because she's from...
Is she North Dakota
She's
or
South
South
Dakota.
Dakota?
She said it's better than North Dakota. So
Kind
she
of.
said...
So weird connection. I used to work for a senator who was from South Dakota. I helped represent the people of South Dakota for a little while, even though I have no personal connection to the state. But he was the majority leader, actually, eventually, in the U.S. Senate. So
Do you miss it then, working... Do you miss it kind of
No.
working full-time then? No, not at
No.
all. Not even though it's
No.
like... It's like you get these people that win the lottery and they're just going to say, "Nah, I'm going to keep going my job for a little while." And it's like, are you literally insane? I'd be quitting my job tomorrow. It's like if somebody says, "Oh, if you could podcast full time, would you kind of do it?" And it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, are you being silly at the moment or what? One of the other sides of it, because we can talk about games all the time, is I notice on the website, you're like, kind of like, if you want me to come and talk at your event. That must be a surprising thing or a new thing. Was that an expected thing?
No. And the interesting thing is now I get invited both to board game things, which was sort of expected. But now I'm also like, I get invited to be a guest at birding events. Which is cool. Yeah. So like I went to the Indiana Dunes Birding Festival last year. They paid for me to go to Indiana, hang out during migration season. It was beautiful.
Lovely.
Lovely people.
Did you not...
Including Wingspan fans, like, so...
But did you not feel you had to kind of, like, swat up on the event and what birds were going to be there and stuff, just in case somebody asked you a question?
Yeah, I do feel like people possibly overestimate my birding expertise. I mean, I'm a birder. Yeah. I know more than the average American about birds, but, in contexts like that, I'm, like, a rank amateur, right, compared to some of these people, but including my spouse. So yeah, I get to like kind of hide in his shadow a little bit.
It's just like I'm taking a look.
Between the two of us, we know what we're doing.
My advisor is here. They have to come to Indiana with me. It's like, why? It's like, well, okay, because if they don't come along, there's a potential I might look a little bit daft when I get asked.
Exactly.
Asked when I get kind of along. But on I guess on the other side as well, are you getting asked along to kind of like, I hate these kind of labels, but you get asked along to like women in event things as well, as in business and stuff?
I haven't yet outside of those two contexts.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of whether I have.
But okay, because
mostly
I've asked a couple. I've asked, is it Carla Kopp about this? And I've asked Janice Turner about this. And I think I probably maybe asked you about it at the time, but this was before obviously Burbgirth took off. And that's the name. It's my friend Leo, right? And he's just amazing. But he says, I'm not going to call it Wingspan. I'm going to call it Burbgirth. Because it's, first of all, it's funny, but it's also true. But so that's why, that's what we don't call it Wingspan. We call it Burbgirth. Right. Are we bringing along Burbgirth? And Burbgirth has become like a regular game that comes along. And are you getting the Burbgirth expansions? And it's like, I don't know. Could you expand Burbgirth anymore? And it's like, it's not rude. It just sounds a kind of like a bit weird. But my question, circling this back into some kind of semblance of sanity, is do you want to just be known as a board game designer, or do you want to get known as a female designer, or here's a women board game designer? I mean, is the next stage, because I know that you're very, very kind of active on inclusivity and things like that. And I guess my question is, as a person, do you want to be invited along to an event because people respect you for what you've done, or you want to be invited along to the event because it looks like you're ticking a couple of boxes to keep somebody happy and it's good for the optics?
Both. I actually think it's useful to tick the boxes, because I think we have to normalize the idea that anyone can design a board game. And I think if you have lots of panels or whatever that are just a bunch of white guys, then everyone like forms that mental image of who designs board games, and maybe they don't consider the possibility that they might want to design a board game if they're not a white dude, right? So I do think there's actual value in ticking the boxes, so I am fine with being the token woman game designer on your panel. For now.
That was good, because I was going to have a panel. Yeah. I'm not going to have a panel.
But also, a lot of people are aware of the list that I put together. Now it's a geek list on Board Game Geek that is like all the women board game designers that I could put my hands on, because back in 2019, a lot of people would say to me in interviews, so you're one of the only women designing board games. What's that like? And I would be like, I'm not. Like, that's overstating it a little bit. Like, there are hundreds of women designing board games. Yeah. They're just a small fraction of the thousands of people who are designing games, but there are a lot of us. So.
And also, I think it's kind of like, as a podcaster like myself, is making sure that I am appearing, I guess, welcoming to anybody that wants to come on the show. And also at the same time, it's me getting somebody on the show because I want them to be on the show, not because I'm getting this person on the show because it ticks, you know, how many Hispanic creators have I had in the last kind of year or whatever. You know, it's just getting somebody on because I want to speak to them because it's interesting. And because, to be perfectly honest, you know, getting somebody on from a different walk of life is always going to be more interesting because you learn an awful lot more kind of like about it.
Right.
Like I had
Right.
William Burgos on, who he's Draco Studios, but they're based in Mexico. So the first thing you learn about is like the gaming scene in Mexico and how it's different from the gaming scene in the US and everything like that, and how it's different from the gaming scene like in kind of Europe, and that kind of thing is always kind of very, 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 very kind of interesting to me. Anyway, oh my goodness, guess what? It's like half an hour in, so we have to talk about this game.
Oh God!
Oh, what?
Don't ask me about the game.
Oh. He's having such a fun time, and now we've got to start talking about board games as well, and I just can't, you know. I don't know about you. We could talk about, right, okay, with it coming into Halloween, and when they're coming into the kind of like November, we are going to talk about Undergrove. I am just like, you know, but with it getting dark, I mean, have you got kind of like a comfort food snack that you go to as it's getting darker, as it's getting colder, and does it anyway involve eating poisonous mushrooms?
I eat a lot of non-poisonous mushrooms.
Right, okay. Because you go foraging, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I've been a mushroom forager for decades. Yeah. We had a lot of mushrooms this fall, too. They're slowing down now, but we got some really nice rain and like just the right conditions. And all these giant puffballs came up. I had one puffball that like was larger than a soccer ball and weighed 4 pounds, whatever that is in what your kilograms. I don't know.
It's pound, no pounds. I mean, we're, you know, that's what.
Oh, you do pounds?
Yeah, we do pounds. We can do pounds. Oh. I know. Right. Actually, I know what my weight is in pounds. No, not in pounds, in stone. More than I do.
Yeah, stone. I've never understood. Where does stone come from?
I don't know. I think it's like the abstract measurement of something. Somebody kind of went, well, this measures a big. This is an average weight of something heavy as a stone. Who knows? Set
aside the fact that stones can be absolutely any size at all.
Point, is it? I mean, somebody kind of went, somebody went around telling other people, right? That's a stone. That's how heavy it is.
Yep.
You know, I was learning a ridiculous fact the other day, because sometimes it's like YouTube is a terrible place, but sometimes on these short things, depending on what you're kind of where you go in the kind of the algorithm, I ended up on kind of like Neil deGrasse Tyson's kind of shorts that he does, and he's talking about the kind of the origin of where the meter came from, and it was something to do with kind of like dividing the distance between the North and South Pole that went through the French observatory in Paris. Dividing it by a certain amount gave the distance of like a meter or something, and that's where the term meter came from. And then you know, so the whole foot and stuff like that, that's all obviously different. That's just somebody in the UK or England or whatever coming up and going, a foot, we like that. But the most interesting one is I'm talking about, you ever heard the thing about why train tracks are the size that they are?
I feel like I have, but now I don't
It's all to do with like horses,
is.
the size of horses or something like that.
Oh,
to do with like the fact that
now is like totally arbitrary, but at the time it was very important.
It goes back to like Roman days where they were making the roads and they had like the guts in the road and stuff like that.
The ruts in the road,
and then everything that was built on from kind of stuff from there was kind of like built around the fact that it's like the size of two horses' arses. side by side is the entire way the distance in our civilization is kind of built on. Yeah. Can you eat puffballs then? I mean, bringing it back.
Yes.
Can you?
Yeah. You can eat puffballs. There's I don't know if you get a mushroom called hen of the woods, but that's a fall mushroom for us that was going crazy this year. So yeah, lots of mushrooms, and we're supposed to get our first freeze tonight, so we're picking everything out of the garden and bringing it in, and we grow a lot of butternut squash, so we'll be eating that all fall and winter. Oh. Yeah, that's something that I associate with this time of year. For
butternut squash is a thing that a lot of people associate with a lot of baby food recipes over here.
Yeah.
Are all about butternut squash.
Yeah, because you can puree it right up. It's got a little sweetness to it.
You can boil it for like 10 minutes and then it's ready. And you can puree it up, and it's sweet enough that a young one will kind of eat it up, and it also contains enough nutrients as well. I was always under the impression that a puffball kind of was like, it's like a raccoon trying to eat candy floss, that you would just start to eat it and it would just like, it'd go and it'd actually be really small. But is it not kind of like just a big ball full of spores, or is it actually quite solid like your
So when it first forms, it's solid.
Right.
And over time, the solid sort of fleshy mushroom that's very much like a mushroom that you would eat, it sort of disintegrates into spores.
Ah, right, okay.
That are in the outside skin of it sort of persists, right?
Yeah.
So the inside of it turns into spores, and then that's when it puffs, right?
Yeah.
That, like if the outside of it gets pushed on, the spores puff out. But before the spores are ready, there's a stage that you can eat it. You don't want to eat the spores; they're gross.
Are they not poison? Because I don't know
if they're toxic, but they're just like, it's powder. Like, how would you prepare that? I don't know. They might also be toxic. I don't know.
Going to the nightclub. What are you doing?
It's like pixie sticks, right?
I'm doing puffing mushrooms. Going about with this, dancing away. What's he on? He's on the puffers. He's on the puffers again. Oh. What do they taste like then? Because my thing with mushrooms is they all have kind of slightly different tastes.
They do, and puffballs have very little taste. People call them tofu of the woods. So they're really good to marinate.
Yeah.
Or people will also bread them and fry them and make like a Parmesan, like you would do with eggplant for Parmesan. You can do it with puffballs.
Wow. Because the other thing that I've seen people do with mushrooms is kind of cook them and then shred them slightly so they almost end up like a pulled pork type of thing.
I bet you could do that with a puffball.
Wow.
I'll have to try that
We
sometime.
should just do an entire podcast about mushroom and fungus.
Mushroom cookery.
Are they all called?
Yeah.
Right, so what's the difference between a fungus and a mushroom then? Is it just nomenclature? Is it like weeds and plants, basically?
So technically, fungi is the whole kingdom.
Right.
And not all fungi produce mushrooms.
Right.
Which a mushroom is the fruiting body. It's like the reproductive parts of the larger fungus. I'm
fascinated. There's no sarcasm. I'm not going to kind of come in and go, no, yeah. So was kind of an Undergrove kind of simmering away in the background? Is Undergrove the kind of the game design? Was that something that's always kind of been there, that you've always went, I wouldn't mind kind of making a kind of a game based around it?
I wanted to do a mushroom game for a long time. I started one that was more like playing from the point of view of a mushroom, and you're spreading your spores around and stuff like that. And I couldn't really get it to work. That's the angle that there was just one on Kickstarter called Mycelium,
yeah.
Or Mycelium. Yeah. That they went from that side. And what my friend Mark and I did when we started working on Undergrove is we decided it would actually be more fun to play from the point of view of a tree so that you can interact with lots of different mushrooms, because if what people want is pretty mushroom art,
Yes.
we need like an excuse to have lots of mushrooms
Yes.
and not just play from the point of view of one species trying to spread around, right? So that was like the first design decision we had to make was, okay, you're actually a tree, and it's about the way that trees and mushrooms interact, which is what I fundamentally wanted to talk about with the game, was the fact that mushrooms and trees trade resources, because trading resources obviously implies that you can do a game about it.
But, I mean, you've introduced, like, clever words like mycorrhizal. And I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right.
I say it mycorrhizal, but one nice thing that sort of exists in the mushroom hobby is people always say, like, nobody knows how Latin is supposed to be pronounced because it's a dead language, so you can pretty much say it however you want.
I don't know, I could probably annoy a couple of people with the way I would.
Your Latin teachers of the world might disagree.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah. But then, again...
But apparently, actually, there are distinctions between, like, there's church Latin and there's scientific Latin and there's historical Latin, and those three groups of people do not agree about how things should be pronounced. So if they can't agree, like, pretty much
same with everything, isn't it?
Just whatever.
It's a tomato.
People know what you mean.
Tomato thing, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Potato.
Yeah.
But nobody calls it potato. But I bet there's somebody
insisting.
insisting.
There's a couple of people in my mushroom club who are native Spanish speakers, so they pronounce all the Latin names as if they're Spanish. And, like, everyone knows exactly what they mean, but it's totally different from how Americans say a lot of them. You know,
I'm just imagining it's mushroom club like Fight Club. You don't talk.
Oh no, we talk about the mushrooms.
We talk about mushroom club. Yeah. And you get some confused person coming along going, I don't think we were supposed to be talking about this. It's like, no, you can talk about it, but you should really put your shoes back on because the floor's quite cold. There's no fight.
The thing mushroomers won't talk about is where their foraging spots are.
If
I have a morel location.
Really?
Yeah. No.
Is it like a kind of a, wow, okay, because there's always something.
I found this spot and they're going to come back every year. Those mushrooms are going to come up and I do not want anyone else
to know. So is there like a kind of like a board game geek version of, you know, on in the kind of the mushroom and fungus world, you know, they're kind of like forums where people are kind of like going, yeah, well, you know, Mike came back with these amazing shiitakes and he won't tell us, but we think he's going down near Route 95. You know, near where the beech tree fell. That's where we think is going, right, kind of thing. Right. I didn't realise. Of course, there's obviously hobbies. Everybody thinks, drama in the board game hobby. It's like, nah, there's drama in every hobby. The wool knitting hobby, you know, the seamstress hobby, the whittling wood hobby. Oh my goodness, you don't want to go for those people because they've usually got knives. You know, you keep on tangenting on me, so we're going to talk about the base mechanics of Undergrove.
Yes.
How does it work?
So there's a shared play space in the middle of the table, and that starts out with 5 mushroom tiles in it, and you start out with 1 tree on the board on one of the nodes. So if you picture the tiles laid out in a grid in the corners where the 4 tiles meet, that's where you can put trees. And your 1 tree has 1 root. Anywhere that you have a root, that's a mushroom that you can interact with.
Wow.
So one of the things you need to do during the game is get more roots out, because you want to be able to activate different mushrooms, because you're going to be giving them resources. You can make your own carbon because you're a tree. You're going to be giving them carbon, and they're going to be giving you stuff that you need in return. And different mushrooms give you different combinations of things. And so part of what you need to do as you're building up in the game is like spread your pieces out and get roots on different mushrooms so that you can get stuff. But then to score, you need to suck some of that carbon up onto the seedlings that you have put out on the board, because that's sort of how you represent that they have grown up and gotten established.
Okay.
And so they're going to score based on, each mushroom has a point value, and if the seedlings have carbon on them, for each carbon that they got onto them, they get to score one of their roots, so one of the mushrooms around them. If they manage to also get roots out. So there's a lot of like, you need this one thing to do this other thing, but then that feeds into the other thing. And so it's very much a like taking efficient actions and trying to figure out the best way to get stuff done. There's you're competing with folks definitely for positions of like their nice juicy corners with lots of good stuff on them, and someone might get there before you, and so it can be kind of a race to get the resources you need to put out another seedling there, and it can be a race to suck the carbon up off of the board that people have been leaving out there.
But so the tiles themselves are quite unusual in that they've got the kind of the quarter circle cut in each corner. So when they come together, that's when you kind of put your kind of, I guess, kind of like your kind of tree,
your little
seedling, and then you can put your kind of like your tree on top. And then out of the corner of those, you've got like your root tokens, and I take it you're allowed to place a root token kind of per round that then allows you to kind of take the actions or whatever associated with the kind of the mushroom tile. Is that a little?
Well, every turn you get to take one action,
right.
And an action might be paying to put out a couple more root tokens, or an action might be paying to put out a seedling, or an action might be activating one mushroom to gather resources instead of paying them, or an action might be sucking up a carbon, or there are, I didn't mention, but the mushrooms have different categories that they're in. There's 4 different tiles you have, and you sort of use them up. So the 5th action that you can take is to make some carbon of your own, and also to refresh all of your mushroom activation tokens. So it's sort of a reset turn, like you have to take in Century Spice Road and things like that. Although you get a bunch of stuff in addition to just flipping your tokens.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, you're having to choose which of the 5 actions you want to do each turn, and so it's very much an economy of like, okay, what order do I do these in, and how do I do it most efficiently, and go as long as I can before I have to take that reset turn and that sort of thing.
How was it a complete collaboration between you and Mark? As in, what did you come up with the idea, and did they help you develop it, or has it been something that you've kind of both worked on from the kind of the beginning?
Yeah, this one we definitely worked on from the beginning together. He had been the developer on Mariposas, and once that was launched, we were like, oh, we should work on another game together. So we started from scratch on this one.
That's kind of cool.
We had talked a little bit about, like, were there other migrations that we wanted to work on? But once I said that I had always wanted to do a mushroom game, he was like, no, that's what we're doing.
When you saw Mycelium, were you a little bit like, nah?
Oh my God, there have been so many mushroom games that have come out in the last 12 months. Like 3 or 4 of them.
No, I didn't see that. I was like, oh, here we go. Here's another mushroom game. Oh, there's another mushroom game. It's like, I wonder what's going to happen here.
So I'm choosing to be optimistic and think like this, how well they did is just a sign of how much demand there is out there. Like mushrooms are definitely having a pop culture moment right now. A lot of people, our club doubled its membership over the course of the pandemic. Like, people are very curious about mushrooms right now.
I think everybody's kind of looking at alternatives to what they're doing. And it's if you go to the store and you're kind of like, I can't get vegetables for kind of like love nor money unless I'm paying kind of top dollar now because of the price of everything. It's like, can I go foraging what everybody else is kind of like, is everybody kind of like doing?
Yeah, I think part of it's foraging. I think part of it is the whole concept of the mycelium and the mycorrhizal networks, and like that sense that everything is interconnected. I think that's getting a lot of traction in public, like, common discourse. and psychedelics are getting a lot of attention right now too, and that is like you cannot underestimate that as a way that people get into mushrooms, and then they're like, oh wait, this whole scene is really interesting. Like it's not just the psychedelics.
I just wondered how many people turn up to Mushroom Club. Like,
if we have someone, so we're very close to one of the universities that's been doing a lot of research on psychedelics as a treatment for PTSD and treatment-resistant depression. So we have them come talk every once in a while, and it is like standing room only at our meetings when we have the psychedelic people talk. So yeah, I mean, and that's great. It's a way in for people. But some of them stick around and just get really hooked on the whole kingdom of fungi, and that's awesome. So, yeah.
In terms of then, I mean, you're going to AAG, or taking it to Kickstarter this month.
Yes, November 7th, the Kickstarter launches.
Wow. Are you
up.
kind of like, oh?
I just wanted to start at this. I hate the wait. Yeah.
Is there not a position that you could potentially, a publisher would just pick this up and just say, let's run with it? Or was it a case of it has to come to Kickstarter because we need to kind of see the because one of the things I'm aware of is like the Fox experiment wasn't that long as Wingspan was going through its meteoric rise. But at the same time, I see Kickstarter serving the purpose when it comes to something like that to help as a kind of an overall marketing tool.
Yeah, I think Kickstarter serves several purposes for publishers. One is marketing, like you said. One is sort of gauging the market. Because a lot of publishers don't have a good way to gauge like how many copies should we even print, and it can be disastrous to be wrong in either direction, right? So you had the situation where Wingspan way underestimated, and then they like couldn't catch up for a whole year as there was crazy demand. And the other side, if you print too many copies and you're like paying for warehouse space and you paid for the copies, and like that can be a real disaster to you. And then third, it's just however many copies they sell on Kickstarter, they're getting full price for them instead of selling them to wholesalers at half price. So that's, can't be underestimated either. That's a good chunk of change for a publisher.
I guess. And on the other side of it is if they manage to get like, say, 5,000 copies printed and 3,500 of them go to backers and the other 1,500 can go to retail. Again, they're kind of making some money off of that back of that.
Right, which is that's what's going to happen with Fox Experiment. It's absolutely going to be in retail, and I'm sure Undergrove too. They'll be in retail, but they want that first print run to go through Kickstarter to get a sense of the market and to just kind of launch them off into the world.
Is there going to be? Have you? And you might not, because I'm very, very aware that this can change right up to the last kind of 48 hours before launch. But have you been given any indication of how much it's going to be for like a pledge level and stuff like that at all?
I actually don't know. I haven't asked. Right. I should ask. But it's something that they were trying to keep in mind, that they wanted to keep the price reasonable. It's not going to be $100 game.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. I mean, we're finding at the moment that being in the UK, that everything just seems to be incredibly expensive, which is going to put us, which is kind of put us off.
Well, and they're doing the whole, there's going to be a deluxe version and then the retail version. You can order either one. So if you want to pay extra, you can.
I wonder if there's a compostable version.
There is no plastic in the box. The whole thing, I guess, technically would be compostable. So. Yes.
That'd be cool.
Technically.
What?
I would hope that you don't, but...
Well, no, I mean, of late, when I got Expeditions, Jamie's kind of gone down all this kind of like the packaging on his stuff all seems to be kind of absolutely biodegradable, which is pretty cool. I'm very conscious of the time. So I'm going to ask one more question, which is, if people have listened along tonight and they're wanting to find about everything that you're involved in on the internet webs, where can we find you on the internet webs?
I have a website that is elizhargrave.com.
There you go.
I decided my first name was too long, so I'm going to use the first 4 letters.
Has this gone back to the kind of the autograph type thing?
It's very long. And for some reason, my parents always used my full first name. I've never shortened it.
Never.
So Eliz is not like a nickname of mine. It's just that my first name is too long. And my cousin grabbed E. Hargrave as an email address many years back. So I never started using that as an abbreviation.
It's literally all your cousin's fault.
It is.
You know, what we'll do is we'll put that link in the show notes with everything. I think I've got a list of all the other kind of links from last. I'll just do a copy and paste from 2019.
Just a few more games to throw in the mix, and you'll be good.
Kind of games to kind of like throw in the mix. I'll make sure that everything kind of goes in the show notes so that we've got kind of links to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet web, search for We're Not Wizards, and you'll find us in all the usual places, under logs, in the dark, where the mushrooms might grow. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Elizabeth?
We are not
There
wizards.
you go. And the second thing, I'm not doing the 5-star joke. It's too cold, too old, too long. It's too cold. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from, you kind of want to do the fungi thing, but don't want to do that. So I'm not going to. So it's a goodbye from Elizabeth. Say goodbye, Elizabeth.
Goodbye. Thanks for having me.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, make something awful. And you might want to overgrove. You might want to middle grove. But in a week's time, make sure you undergrove. Until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.